6:30. We have some announcements before the meeting starts. Call for volunteers. There are still current openings online. You can find the description and the list of positions on the volunteer tab. Planning board is having a public hearing regarding proposed zoning bylaw amendments. That's next Tuesday, March 17th at 7 p.m. And then there's a complete schedule of the select board and finance committee budget article review meetings online, and there's a website on the agenda. It's also linked from the FinCom webpage. Town manager Angus as well.
I'm sorry, what?
The schedule.
Yeah, from the town manager page, there's a budget button on the left, and it's all linked from there.
Okay, great. Regular business, the first item is public comment. Anybody here wishing to make a public comment? Or online? Okay, item B, town manager updates.
Okay, first one, we will be rolling out the new website this coming Monday. People don't need to learn a new link. It's going to redirect obviously from the current link. But we've been working, and by we, I really mean Rebecca and Amanda and a number of other staff in the building. They've really done a phenomenal job kind of coordinating, getting everyone aligned on that. So we will be flipping the switch on Monday, and I think people are going to really like the new site, and obviously we'll send something out and we'll post on Facebook and so forth, let people know to check it out, kick the tires. But as with any transition, there's always going to be, there might be glitches. Certainly we don't think there will, but if we knew about them, we would fix them. But if we are going to have a link on there that if people find, a broken link or something that doesn't look quite right, there's going to be a portal there for people to get us input, and then we can get the appropriate department doing that. But that's been months in the making, and I do think people will be pleased with the new site. It will be a transition, as with anything new. People may like this better or like this less, but I think on balance it's qualitatively better, and we're pretty excited to roll that out. Next item, this has been also in the works for quite a while. I know the board's aware we had gotten a earmark in the state fair share budget for $50,000 for, it was specifically earmarked for pedestrian safety. Since we had some conceptual planning work done for the library town hall crossing last year, which was also funded by a state grant, we felt, and I talked to the board a couple of months ago, and we all agreed that the library town hall was going to be a good place to focus that resource. So that $50,000 will be put toward taking the concept plan for that crossing up to a higher level of engineering design. That is going to involve extensive public process, including outreach to everybody who lives in that area, and we'll do more broad public outreach as well. But people who live in the vicinity of the training field and the town hall and the library can expect to receive mail notices. We do not have any near-term plans to initiate that. Obviously, right now we're in the thicker budget and articles and so forth. So I think the soonest we would be starting that would be May or June. That's and it could be later. It could be as late as next fall. We'll take our cues from the board in terms of where it fits within your priorities as well as staff capacity to carry that forward. Under the earmark, we do have till June 30th of 2027 to expend that. So even if we didn't start in a meaningful way until the fall, there would still be plenty of time to get that done. And to be clear for those watching, $50,000 is a lot of money, but it's not going to be enough to get it to 100% design and permitting. It will get it to a higher level of engineering and design, which may or may not be the concept plan that's in the packet. Part of the whole public process is to see if people like that or if they like different ideas. But it's going to be, I think, exciting to have a focus on that location, which is, it did emerge from the Route 113 corridor planning process as one of the intersections of, high priority for improved safety.
So 5% design, does that make it eligible for the, additional state funding?
It does, yeah, that would be, the threshold we get on the tip,
Mhm.
the Regional Transportation Improvement Program. There's a, meeting in Haverhill, later this month on the 25th, Butch will be attending, and that's to do with the tip, and, that's a large regional meeting, so he'll be there to, wave the flag and to get, to increase, West Newbury's visibility in the regional transportation planning process. Yeah, that would be the objective, is to look to the state, either with state or federal money, to actually, when it comes time to construction, for them to take that on. It is their road, it's not our road. And I did sign a contract with TEC once we got the contract executed with the Commonwealth, but I was explicit in my direction to them that just sit tight until you hear from us. So they know that we're not going to be ready to ramp up on that for at least a couple of months. And kickoff meeting with Mass DER, Ty and Bond, regarding the transitional culvert work on River Road. We have a meeting coming up on Monday, and Butch, Dan, Callahan, and Caitlin Barker will join me for that. And so it's nice to see that moving forward, because that took probably a couple of months at the state before they got notice to proceed. And I know I've said this before, but this is an instance where the consultant was engaged by, and it reports to the state. So they're managing that process. We're a partner in that, but we don't have any direct responsibility to manage the contract and manage the vendor. So that's, I think, a good opportunity. I'll keep you apprised of that. Next item, the capital improvements program. I wanted to show you this is the it's still a working draft. It's going to be a working draft for a little while, but this is into the kind of forward facing CIP that you've seen drafts of before. And this, I wanted just tonight to get a little glimpse of what people can expect once this is pushed out on the site. Basically, it's got the overall capital program is organized by.
Could you share that? Thanks.
What?
Did you share the screen? Or?
Oh, am I sharing? I thought I was. No, I'm not. Sorry about that. Yeah, great. Good. So the town policy calls for a 6-year CIP. We did this to 10 years. Obviously, the further out you get, the more variables there are in terms of cost as well as sequencing. But basically, it's organized with the same categories that we've had all along. You see, and so you can click on the overall capital projects page, and that will show you through this every project, the year, what category it is, what the amount is. For anything that's shows as a 0, it means that it's either something we already did, and therefore it's not part of this, or it's after FY37. So it's kind of either already done or in the distant future. So within this, take just any given example, you just click on it, and it pulls up that capital summary sheet. Got a photo, a brief description. Let's see. Some of the narratives are more than others, and it's got so let's say like the Action Cove. One of the nice things about this software that's been appealing all along is it's got the projected cost, but also the projected revenue sources. So for instance, with the Action Cove, when the time comes, that's anticipated to be proposed for CPA funds. Obviously, that's, nothing's decided. That's a whole process to follow, but it allows us to project kind of where the money comes from. So this, and let's see. Oh, and then you can also click on within a type. So like within the facilities, it shows everything within that time frame, and you can scroll over and see actually which projects are comprising those amounts. And then, you know, and so you can drill down to different layers of detail. So I am still working with departments to still space out the projects, because that continues to be a challenge to find the time. But we are further along than we have been, and we're very close. So I wanted to include just a briefing on that tonight, and at a future meeting later this spring, we'll have it all done, and we'll push it all out on the website. But I wanted to at least give a status update tonight. To be honest, when we posted the agenda on Tuesday, I thought we might be there by tonight, but a couple of things have come up the last couple of days, which have kind of thrown my schedule off, and I didn't have the time I hoped I would have. Part of why I wanted it on tonight was today was Max's last day, our assistant town clerk, and he's been extremely helpful at migrating everything into ClearGov. So I thought that'd be a nice kind of capstone for him to be able to like roll that out. But the last couple of days have been pretty hectic. We are I'm close to finalizing the correspondence to the state on the state budget priorities based on the input the board had given me back on February 12th. I did want to mention there are a couple of things in there that you hadn't specifically talked about at the last meeting, and I wanted to see if you want to carry these forward. The things you have talked about are the ADA transition with the new Title II requirements for website accessibility. The other was the water infrastructure, as well as water regionalization and potential technical support there. Two items that were in last year's budget priorities, which we didn't talk about, but before I send it, I wanted to see. One was the Chapter 70 formula. I could use the same paragraph we used, but just to continue that, wave the flag on the issues there. And the second was on resiliency and climate projects. So I didn't know if you wanted to keep either or both of those. We have already written for prior years. So.
And this is just the upcoming year's budget?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think, Chris?
I like the two that we've got currently. I mean, the others are already put out. Chapter 70 seems to be a whole different issue too.
Mm.
You have to get to a different level to get addressed seriously.
Okay, I'll keep it focused on those items.
Yeah, I think that's good.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll get that sent tomorrow, and I'll send that around to you guys as well. Pentucket, they approved their budget assessment on the 3rd. I thought they might re-vote it on the 10th, and when we posted this agenda Tuesday afternoon, we didn't know if they would. As it turns out, they stuck with the assessment that they had voted the prior Tuesday, so that's in your packet, and that's the same thing I had carried in the budget that I presented on February 12th. I included the schedule of town meeting articles and budget sections. There have been a couple of article withdrawals or removals, including the retiree health percentage and a couple of fire capital articles, the SCBA units and the fire off-road vehicle. So I think it's just good to keep that schedule in the packets.
No,
you know, people can't see it often enough because it's there is a lot going on, and it's great to continue to push that out there. This next item, we received the contract from the Commonwealth. This is the cyber awareness program that we participated in a number of times previously, and I did get confirmation from Christian this afternoon that I should go ahead and sign that contract. Looks good, so I will be signing that and returning that to Commonwealth. That is not there's no dollar impact for that. It's essentially a training program that we participate on. The next one, the cost estimates to MEMA. There was a hastily organized statewide call last Thursday, or Zoom meeting last Thursday, that Butch and Caitlin Parker and I were part of. And basically at this stage of the process, the Commonwealth needs to demonstrate to the feds a certain dollar threshold of estimated losses in order to be eligible for potential declaration of a federal disaster. If the feds declare a disaster, that is then sets into motion of process of a much more detailed accounting of costs. So what we provided was more than sufficient for the purposes of this stage, but those are preliminary estimates. And if there is a federal disaster declaration, at that point, we would obviously comb through records to make sure we're not leaving a penny on the table. But also when you submit this to the feds, you need to include all your documentation, your invoices, but also even so much as like timesheets, and it's a very very detailed process. So, but I did want to commend Butch and Chief Dwyer for turning around those numbers so promptly. What the person who led last week's call said is that technically the state has 30 days after the event to get this to FEMA. Historically, that's been a very loose 30 days, but they said with the current administration, like that's an absolute 30 days. There will be no extensions to that. So they were kind of prevailing on the communities to say, get us your data so we can aggregate it and help make the case. And ultimately, it is a discretionary decision at the federal level as to whether there would be a declaration or not. And so I've told my staff that, you know, what we have is fine for now. If there's a declaration at that point, it's a more onerous process.
So would the cost of paying employees who weren't able to come to work because the town office was closed, would that be included?
You know, that's a good question. I tend to doubt it, but there's no harm in asking. Yeah.
Like the library as well?
Yeah. One thing I had assumed there would have been overtime in water, but there actually wasn't. So that was good. And some other quick updates. I had asked Caitlin to put together this memo on the summer rec program. It's gone very, very smoothly.
Great.
Without a hiccup, so to speak. As I've been hiccuping for 2 days.
Remember 5 years ago, I think software, how difficult this whole process was?
It was very difficult. It was very difficult. It was very chaotic. There was not a clear paper trail.
Yeah.
Things like refunds ended up being difficult. Things like sibling discounts ended up being difficult. Things like, cancellations, partial refunds, all of that. And between the software and really Caitlin and Amy's been terrific right throughout. But now she's got a lot more front office support, and she has been very thankful to Caitlin, to Jenny, to Caitlin Gilbert, you know, Rebecca in my office, on everything from administering the MyRec to the purchasing and the Amazon to the hiring process, the posting of jobs, the employment contracts. You know, that's all now handled in the town offices. So Amy's got a lot more support, and it's really going very well. There's like no drama. So there's not much to say other than for those who remember, there used to be quite a lot of drama. So
I'll say that, you know, it'll peek its ugly head.
let's see. Next item. This is the meeting I mentioned that Butch will be out later this month, up in Haverhill. And one other thing, not great news, but just letting you know what's going on. There was a issue in the last couple of days with one of the septic lines in Page School, some clogging. And so right now, a number of the bathrooms on the first floor are out of service. So Brian has been working with Jonathan Seymour on that to get some evaluation. I don't yet have a estimate of what the damage is or what the cost is going to be. That's going to obviously determine whether it ends up being a town cost or a district cost, but that is something that's an operational issue right now. And because the septic line is embedded in the concrete floor, it ends up being a problem. Got asbestos tile, and you know, it ends up being a challenge.
Have they tried jetting the lines or anything yet, or still exploring?
Brian's working on it. I talked to him about it in the last day or so, and my understanding is he's done all of that, and it's still flying. We don't know what the issue is. I'll keep you posted on that.
Okay.
We did have, as part of the telecom upgrades at Page School, there were a couple of wires that had to go through walls, and I can't remember if I briefed the board on this or not, but we needed to do some testing for asbestos just to make sure before they started opening up the walls. We did that, it all came back clean, so that was good. That telecom project is going forward smoothly.
So, is there any limitations on school operations if the bathrooms are not available?
No, there haven't, just on that floor. I believe that was all I had.
All right, we'll move on to action items. Item A is presentation of the FY 25, should be 26,
Yes, it should.
down on it.
Yeah.
Oh, no, 25, we're at 26.
Okay. And you have excellent timing. I saw that.
Yeah, well.
So, you?
So I included in the packet the financial statements, and Jim's put together some slides, so I'll get those loaded up and we can prepare.
Okay. Angus, thank you, can you guys can hear me okay, right?
Yeah.
All right, so thank you for having us here, present the results of the audit. Before I get into the things, it's a nice presentation, just wanna introduce myself. My name is Jim Petrowski, I'm the engagement principal with overall signing responsibility for the audit, working with Angus and Jenny and Caitlin Gilbert throughout the process. Joining me here tonight is Katie Harriman, who was another critical member of the audit team. Was really involved as far as the information gathering. So as we get into it, just first and foremost want to express our appreciation for the team out here, Angus, Jenny, Caitlin Gilbert, as far as their assistance. It's our first year auditing town, and they were really great to work with, responsive, timely, and getting us their information. So we greatly appreciate the collaboration in the process. We can go to the next slide here. So what we'll cover is basically our audit scope, what we're engaged to perform as part of the town's audit. I'll give an overall overview of the results for this year's audit. We'll talk about some of the financial highlights and the financial statements, get into some of the internal control reporting and the deliverables as far as what we identified for recommendations to the town, and then we'll talk about some of the required communications we have to make to the board as well. So first and foremost, we were engaged by the town to express an opinion on the town's financial statements and their fair presentation in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. What this requires is we have to gather evidence, obtain an understanding of internal control, and be able to perform procedures to allow us to indicate that, in our opinion, the financial statements and information presented there, the transactions, account balances, disclosures are all fairly presented in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. So obtaining a lot of evidence from the management team to get that opinion, that's our first objective from the financial audit. Now, in addition, because we're required to look at internal controls as part of the engagement, we're also engaged to issue a report on internal control over financial reporting. So in the event we were reviewing internal controls, if anything were to come to attention that was severely concerning or warranted any sort of material audit adjustment, we would need to include that in our internal control report. We don't provide an opinion on the town's internal control. That's only purpose is served is to indicate if there's any sort of findings that arise to attention that we need to communicate to this board. In addition, we're looking at internal controls. We do provide a standard practice recommendation. So if there's opportunities for improvement that we identify and work with management on, that's usually expressed in the management letter. Not as concerning as the internal control report, but something that we still want to communicate with management. We'll get into some of those recommendations later on. In our required governance letter, by audit standards, we need to communicate certain themes at the conclusion of the audit to the governing board. We do have a few listed out that I'll get into at the conclusion of the presentation. Go to the next slide. So this year, working with the town, gathering the information, we expressed an unmodified opinion on the financial statements, means we got enough evidence. We're able to express a clean opinion on the report. It's the best opinion that the town could receive on the financial statements. This year, there was an emphasis of matter paragraph related to a restatement we identified during the audit process, which we'll talk about in the next slide. When we look at the overall results as far as internal control reporting, we did have one material weakness to report, and we'll get into that a little later on in the presentation. And there were 3 management letter comments that we discussed with management as well, included in our letter, just areas that we wanted to recommend for improvement moving forward. So the emphasis of matter paragraph, you'll see this in our audit opinion on pages 1 through 3, I believe, which will basically indicate that in the financial statements, or the prior financial statements, the town's affordable housing trust fund was previously presented in the fiduciary statements as part of the private purpose trust funds. With the implementation of GASB statement number 84, which was required in 2022, essentially affordable housing trust funds wouldn't have met the definition of a fiduciary activity because of the town's involvement in administering that fund and the collection of receipts and disbursements within that fund. So we're or a fiduciary. Was there a question? I'm sorry.
No, I think someone had their muting.
Oh, sorry. So where that fund did not meet the requirements for fiduciary activities, it really should have been reported as a governmental fund all along. So as a result, you'll see in note 15 that there is a restatement to the opening fund balance in the non-major governmental funds, as well as the reduction in the private purpose trust funds, which was around 440,000, which is just the affordable housing trust balance. So that was something, in talking about it with management, we're on the same page as far as that needing to be updated, and that presentation is updated for moving forward. Okay. So to get into some of the financial highlights, I will start with the statement of net position of the governmental activities, just to highlight some key balances here. The town's liabilities at year end total $8.7 million. Looking at it, one of the larger liabilities, looking at the town's OPEB liability of $470,000, was an increase of around $388,000 from the prior year. There's a detail as far as the changes in that liability in the OPEB footnote. Really just relate to some of the changes and assumptions, which is consistent with what we're seeing in terms of healthcare rates and increases and things of that nature. The pension liability was also 1.4 million increase from the prior year. It totaled 7.6 million at year end. The town reports a proportionate share of Essex Regional, so it's really dependent on the experience that the Essex Regional retirement system is encountering this year. That leaves the town with net position of $33.8 million, of which 25.4 million is your net investment in capital assets. Restricted net position is around $8.6 million, which leaves an unrestricted deficit of $194,000. For the governmental activities, while that seems like a large balance on the surface, that is much lower than many of the communities we encounter because of the such high pension and OPEB liability. So an unrestricted net deficit and that amount is very uncommon for it to be that low. So I do want to highlight, it's uncharacteristic, but in a positive nature for the town. Okay. And in the statement of activities this year, the governmental activities net position increased 2.4 million. That's mainly related to an increase in capital grants and contributions from the prior year. Total expenses were 20 million, of which about 50% related to the educational assessments. Total revenues and transfers are 22.5 million. To highlight some of the balances there, program revenues, so your charges for services, operating grants, capital grants around 3.6 million, of which the public works capital grants received by the town were around $2 million. So they're making up most of the program revenues. The general revenues, as far as your taxes and revenues that aren't assigned to programs, totaled around 19 million, of which primarily related to the real estate taxes of 17 million. When we look at the general fund at year end, total fund balance around 7 million. Individual components, you have 32,000 restricted from municipal buildings. A committed fund balance 2.4 million. That's your articles, and this is devoted for the subsequent year, as well as your continuing articles. Have around 1,400 of encumbrances, and leaves the town with an unassigned fund balance of 4.5 million. of which 2.5 million is your general stabilization fund. We look at it in relation to some of the key ratios, so looking at around 23.3% of expenditures and transfers out. While it's a slight decrease from the prior year percentage, this is well in line with the bond rating agency's recommendation between 15 and 35%. So that 23.3% is right in the written range of that recommendation. And as far as the overview of the fund balance, there was a net decrease on the financial statements of 104,000. When we look at the activity in relation to the budget to actual comparison, the town was going to utilize approximately $2.9 million to fund the 25 budget. There was a positive revenue variance of 200,000, positive expenditure balance before the carry forwards of 2.5 million, and then your stabilization investment income also contributes to that. Those three factors leave a net difference from expectation of 2.8 million. So instead of a $2.9 million loss in the general fund or a decrease in the general fund balance, will be a better term, you're looking at only 100,000 there. So that's how the budgetary statement relates, but when we look at what the town planned to expend, the overall end results were much lower. So, and we'll see that the carry forwards expended in fiscal 26 and moving forward as well. Okay. Moving on to the water enterprise, the liabilities were around 7 million this year. Looking as far as bonds payable, about half that balance. There was an OPEB asset allocated to the water enterprise fund of 45 million, and then a net pension liability of 636,000.
45,000. 45,000.
So, sorry, 45,000. Left the water fund with a net position of 4.9 million. Most of that is the net investment in capital assets, a restricted debt position of 46,000, just because you have an OPEB asset that has to just by GAAP purposes be restricted for OPEB. If you have an OPEB asset and then you're unrestricted, net position in the water fund is around 2 million. Change this year was around 218,000 from the operating results. Okay. To get into some of the key financial highlights from a disclosure perspective, first we'll look at the OPEB liability. Did see an increase here to 424,000. There is a presentation breakout, just depends on the actuarial's allocation, that a portion of that is actually presented as an OPEB asset as it relates to the water fund, and then there's actually a higher liability in the governmental activity. So it's a bit unusual to see it can happen with how the actuary allocates it. But the total net OPEB liability is 424,000. When we look at the fiduciary net position as a percentage of the calculated liability, you're looking at 89%, which I have not seen a community that high as far as the funded ratio. So in that respect, and we look at an average of the states being around 10 to 20% funded or so, that is a very high ratio of funding the OPEB liability. And then as far as a summary of the related amounts, I spoke on this a bit, but you do have some offsetting balances there. There's a table on page 55, which will break that up. Go to the next one. Discount rate was 5.8%. That's the expected long-term rate of return on the OPEB investments that's used to project the total liability to present value. When we look at the sensitivity of that discount rate assumption, if you were to change it, with the plus or minus 1%, it really swings around $500,000 each way. So if that were to, discount rate were to decrease, you're looking at around a $1 million liability. If it were to increase a percentage point, you're looking at net OPEB asset for the town as a whole. We look at the healthcare trend rates. It's a comparable increase, decrease. If those healthcare trends were to increase by 1%, you're looking at around a $500,000 liability, or excuse me, $1 million liability. In the same direction or opposite direction, if it were to decrease 1%, you're looking at an OPEB asset. So just gives you an idea as far as what those percentages, how they can impact that liability. The net pension liability, 8.2 million, is an increase from last year. This is reported as the town's proportion of the Essex Regional Retirement System. So the town will make its contribution to the system, but they're responsible for the administration and management of the net position and the investments to fund that liability and management of the investments associated with it, as well as the benefit payment. So town is making the required contribution, but not much more in the administration beyond that. The current year proportion is pretty level with the prior year as far as the town's balance in relation to the other communities that are involved with the system. So a little change there as far as the overall pension liability. Discount rate used by Essex Regional was 7% to discount the liability to present value. And if we look at some changes in that discount rate, you're looking at around roughly a $1.5 to $2 million swing in either direction, depending on if that discount rate assumption were to change at the Essex Regional retirement level. Okay, are there any questions on the financial statements before we get into some of the other reporting?
Chris, good question.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, so for this year, we did have to report an internal control finding, with it being material weakness, related to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund balance, which I elaborated on a little earlier on, but essentially it was just a gap reporting issue to where the Affordable Housing Trust Fund should have been reported in the governmental funds. It was previously fiduciary. So by audit standards, when we have a material audit adjustment, we have to report it in the control report as a material weakness. We don't see this as a systemic concern of any nature. We see this as isolated gap reporting matter. Where it's corrected this year, we wouldn't envision reporting this again in the subsequent year. So. Next slide. As far as the management letter, these comments are not that severe or concerning in nature by any respect, but more things we identified during the audit. We just wanted to point out to management as far as for really just standard practices and improving practices. These are more recommendations as far as just to consider. One being the leases. So one of the facilities the town leases was not reported in the governmental fund financial statements in accordance with GASB 87. When you're leasing a facility, you have to report a long-term receivable and then a corresponding offset to a deferred inflow. It's almost like a liability account. So there's no impact on the opening equity. It's not material because you have these large offsetting balances, but at the same time, it's still required by GAAP. So you just have to make sure that receivable is reported with the corresponding inflow, and there's a journal entry to reduce it as the lease payments come in. It's a big change required to be implemented. I believe it was 2021 or so, but we just want to recommend that the town consider this requirement as new leases are entered into and identified. As far as the OPEB trust, the town's investment policy is currently the governing document for the OPEB trust. There is reference made to the relevant Mass General law. So I feel like in that sense, it points to the requirements that need to be met for GAAP purposes. The Municipal Modernization Act of 2016 actually resulted in the publishing of a standard template to use to make sure that it's GASB compliant and really just clarify as far as how the trust needs to be implemented to comply with GAAP. So our recommendation is for the town to consider utilizing that template to just update its OPEB trust and to eliminate any possible unclarity as far as how the OPEB trust is administered and compliant with generally accepted accounting principles. I think we can skip a couple slides here. Purchasing and contracting. So in talking with management, in looking through subsequent year expenses, we did identify that a construction project change order to be paid from the Water Enterprise Fund. It was presented to the Finance Department after a year end. It wasn't really anticipated by the department. It resulted in a GAAP adjustment to be posted to the financial statements that management provided us. We have those types of things. It was the expense needed to be voted at special town meeting to cover those costs, and they weren't anticipated. What we wanted to recommend as a result of discussing this with management is that a policy be discussed and considered as far as making sure that if these costs are expected to be incurred with the change orders, that the Board of Water Commissioners has a required communication process with the town, with the town manager and the finance department to make sure that there's proper consideration as far as how those unexpected expenses can be funded. So. Okay. And as far as our required communication, so these are standard, really every engagement, we have to communicate a set letter of matters, which I believe that has been provided to the board, but there's a full written letter as far as what we have to make for standard communications. As far as overall communications, management is responsible for the principles that are implemented and the policies that are implemented in the financial statements. All significant transactions are reported in the financial statements in the proper period. We didn't identify any sort of transactions to lack any sort of authoritative guidance, and we found the financial statements to be presented neutrally, consistent, and clearly. As far as the uncorrected misstatements, these are misstatements that aren't material for our standards, but high enough to where we at least need to communicate them to management. The opioid settlement receipts and what's still outstanding, that's a $33,000 unreported accrual. Recreation funding that's come in for summer programs in advance, there's around 60,000 there of an unreported liability, and then a settlement payable related to an event that happened prior to the fiscal year end but was paid after. That is not reported in the financial statements. Again, these three balances are not material or concerning by any means, but just above a threshold where at least have to communicate that to management, to the board. For the corrected misstatements, it's the Affordable Housing Trust Fund is the only one that we had pointed out to management. We discussed that. Significant estimates, you're looking at the total OPEB liability. Pension is not included there because it's depending on the Essex Regional Retirement System's valuation and their calculation, but the OPEB is essentially a town involved estimate to where there's deliberation of the methods and assumptions used for the calculation of the OPEB liability. During the process, we didn't encounter any disagreements with the management team. Again, we found them to be quite collaborative in the process. We did request certain representations around the information provided in the audit. Those are provided in the representation letter. And again, we do have the emphasis of matter related to the restatement and the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. Important things to note here, no impact on the unmodified opinion. The financial statements are still fairly standard. And with that, I will open up to any questions.
Jenny, I'm sure you've been through this already, so you don't have any questions.
I don't know, right now.
You want to hand it off too, right? Jen?
Oh, perfectly.
That's one, it's a two's question. Custodial credit risk. We talk about the uninsured balance of 5.2 million.
Sure, so we look at that custodial credit risk, essentially, the coverage that's currently held by the town, it doesn't meet the gap standard to be disclosed as covered. In essence, that if those deposits were, actually, I want to look at the disclosures to make sure I'm on the same page here. Right, so the deposits on set at the banks, they're insured by a certain limit up to FDIC. There's gonna be collateralization agreements above and beyond the FDIC limit. The balance that aren't covered by FDIC or any other collateral agreement that meets gap requirements is your uninsured balance, which amounted to 5.2 million a year. And so it's required disclosure. It is something we see that's fairly common in the communities that we work with, but essentially we have to disclose the risk that if there were any sort of failure at the bank or anything of concern at the financial institutions, that those deposits by gap requirements are not covered by insurance or collateral.
That not concerning, I had 5.2 million uninsured, I'd be nervous.
Right. It's something where we have to disclose it. Just consider, there was nothing of immediate concern as far as those deposits being at risk. So there was no event or anything immediate that it's disclosed that, hey, the risk is there as far as it could happen. They're not covered by collateral or insurance, but there's no immediate event indicating that those deposits are subject.
I'm a chicken, there's never anything until it happens.
You got it. Fair statement.
Is there any way to insure against
Yes,
losses on that? Would it be prudent?
yes. You could look at a lot of, there's one option would be the movement of certain funds to other financial institutions, increase the FDIC coverage. There's other types of agreements you could enter into, look at a letter of credit. Intra-fi agreements are available as well, but there are ways to collateralize that uninsured balance.
Something I would like to have us look into, I think.
Fair enough.
So the items that you noted, other than the Affordable Housing Trust, are those things that will be changed going forward now that they've been highlighted? Or you're just noting them and,
The lease item specifically has been changed because that was purely an accounting recommendation. So that the contract we identified, it's that specific issue has been changed. As far as the actions for moving forward, those have been disclosed in the full management letter as far as the actions that the town is taking. It wasn't something that was immediately resolved during the audit process, just because we're communicating it now, but our understanding the town is taking the action to approve those.
Yeah, and within the management letter includes management response, so Jenny and I work together on those,
Yes.
and so that basically sets out the commitments that have been made. So on the OPEB, you can expect later this fiscal year to have a form of OPEB trust brought to you for execution in the template form that the state recommends. So that'll take care of that. And then on the water one, I did communicate the management comment to the Board of Water Commissioners, so a couple of weeks ago, 2 or 3 weeks ago, once we got the draft management letter, and I did attend their meeting to let them know this was going to be in the management letter. We will continue to press them to adopt a formal policy on that. Obviously, with all that went on with Church and Prospect, they took a vote in October, and they've committed to, let us know about change orders, but we would look to them to adopt a more formal policy. As you know, bigger picture, we would look to the Water Commission to have a much more robust set of bylaws and policies. They don't really have that, but we would look to have them have, documented policies that can be relied upon, understood by the commissioners and by staff.
anything else you want to highlight, Angus? from here?
No, I mean, it's been a great work with Jim and his team. It's been a very smooth process. I know we kept you briefed right along, but back in June, he had come out, spent almost half a day, and at that time had gone through an exhaustive list of everything he'd be looking for from us, and there was nothing on there that was a surprise to particularly Jenny and Caitlin. But it was really nice to have that kind of checklist. I think we all felt that it was very helpful. That's not something we had, prior audits, so I think we felt extremely well prepared when they arrived. They came in July, spent a good amount of time there, and a couple of months prior to coming in September for the full audit, but they got a lot of their field work done really very early in the fiscal year. And I mean, I think it was a very smooth process. Or Jenny, I don't know if you want to elaborate on that at all.
No, nothing really more to say, just was.
We appreciated team's collaboration as well, just having everything ready for us to go, so we felt like it was cooperative on both ends. We appreciated that.
So one thing we kicked around at a staff level earlier this week, Jenny and Caitlin and I met, and we were talking about this idea of the town potentially, looking ahead at some point, making public land available for agricultural use, and whether if that was a lease versus a license agreement, and whether if it's a license agreement, which is probably my expectation, because I doubt the town's envisioning charging money for this, so I don't think that would be kind of an audit issue, but that's something we talk with Jim about when the time comes. My assumption is that would be more like a license agreement, would still be subject to procurement based on the value of what's provided, but the town's got an agricultural committee, and there's some interest in evaluating whether there might be town-owned lands that could have, potential as productive agricultural land, and if so, to initiate a procurement process to see about putting that to good use. But in light of the comment on leases, we kind of wondered, is that, so.
So which lease was it? That was not.
I wondered, but I was gonna wait to ask later.
It was the children's castle.
That's right. Yeah. They're not a long standing one, so
Yes.
it's easy to see. Okay. All right, great, thank you. I appreciate you coming out in person to share this with us.
Sean, I would appreciate the opportunity to work with the town.
Yeah.
Okay,
Great,
Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Thanks, Steve.
All right, let's see. Item B is a request for designation as special municipal employee.
So we're actually running about 10 minutes ahead of where I thought we would be, and
Are you expecting?
I believe Ivrea is intending to zoom in. I told her it was not likely to be before about 6:30,
Okay,
so maybe we pass over that one.
the next item is a request for approval to apply for participation in Living Shoreline Planning Series training program. It's by the CCRC, and I see that Liz is here. Hi, Liz.
Hello.
So we have a letter and the application in the packet. Let me just scroll forward to it. I had a conversation with Liz earlier today just about a concern that the makeup of the team is primarily non-residents. You know, one of the team is on the CCRC and a resident. And just wondering if there's any way to make this more reflective or more representative of the CCRC. Don't know if you want to speak to that, Liz?
Sure. Most of you probably aren't familiar with this application, but it's an application that would allow the town to take advantage of training that's being offered on living shoreline options. Living shoreline options are using native materials, and it was one of the options that was identified in the 2024 report to the town by GEI as a way to make River Road more resilient in terms of erosion along the shoreline of the road, and as well as flooding. So the Climate Change Resiliency Committee has been interested in knowing and pursuing living shoreline techniques for the road for some time now. And this opportunity came along to provide training for that. But it would be training specific to a project, and the focus of the project would be river road locations. So one of our Climate Change Resiliency Committee members would be part of a 3-person team that would receive 5 sessions of training and then participate in a site visit with experts. The 3 people are experts themselves in this area, which is why we thought they would be the ones that would benefit the most from the training in terms of making headway on developing options for River Road. And what I had told Wendy in terms of the benefit coming back to the town, I think there's clearly the benefit because the focus area of the training will be based on doing this type of work specifically along River Road. They'll be looking at River Road and different sections of that and see where these strategies might apply. So I think there's a clear benefit flowing back to the town. All of the materials and anything they develop as part of the training will then be available to us, the committee, that can then bring that back to the town and present it in whatever way people would find useful. So we thought rather than put other members of the committee that are less familiar with living shorelines, so they're starting at a level that they really would make less headway than these experts that we're associated with. We'd rather have that team be stocked with that one CCRC member and members of a committee that we formed to look at living shorelines that already have expertise in this area.
Chris, do you need comments or questions?
Yeah, if it's gonna be a resource for the town, I would have thought we would have maybe 2 out of the 3 from the committee. I think it'd be more beneficial. I don't know if that's possible, or. I mean, because aren't the 5 sessions remote?
I believe they're remote. what I was just trying to explain is I do think the entire committee as well as the town will be receiving the benefit from this because they're going to focus their training around developing strategies specifically for River Road. For example, I have a background in environmental issues, but I don't have them in wetland science. A lot of this would go over my head, and I think when our committee met last night and we talked about this and the fact that only 3 people, a team of 3, would be receiving the training. There was agreement with the committee that it made sense to have that be given to the people that have a grounding in this kind of science and could make the most use of it. And the other 2 people that are not part of the CCRC are part of the committee that the CCRC convened to help support the MVP grant. So they are directly coordinated with us.
Do you have any other questions about the application itself?
No, I mean, I think the concept is good. I would just rather be able to capture as much of that knowledge as possible for the town, so that moving forward, you'd have the benefit of it. And it does call them training sessions, so.
Yeah, I guess the connection to this group is, I mean, it's not really a town group, right? I mean, I know that the CCRC relied on them and engaged with them to do this work, but the town didn't really have the option or be part of that choice. So it seems like a loose connection to me.
A second person on the group is also part of the Merrimack Valley Planning Commission, and she's been a partner that the town has done work with before. So she's also very closely connected with the town and resiliency planning. So to our way of looking at it, we feel like this group is very connected to the town, and I just want to reinforce that the focus area is the town's riverfront. So that all of that work comes back to the town directly.
Yeah, I guess the point that I was thinking about was that, if essentially these people are representing the town, right? In this grant, the town is the applicant for the grant, but 2 of the people aren't residents. I agree that they're very well connected and informed about the town's needs, but they aren't actually representing the town, in terms of priorities or anything like that. So, I mean, I would feel better if one of those other members could be a CCRC member. I mean, it seems like the training is for people that don't, I mean, like if originally we had talked about having the conservation agent on here, I mean, he certainly doesn't have climate resiliency experience. But to me, the point of this grant is to train people so that, they are able to evaluate these opportunities for resiliency. So that's something I would like to see. I mean, if there's an option for a 4th person, I mean, couldn't another member of the CCRC be added?
Well, at this point, as you know, we first inquired whether the conservation agent would take a spot. And then we also asked whether someone on the Conservation Commission might join the group. It's a very streamlined application, and there isn't a chance at this point to kind of dialogue with the program in terms of flexibility for adding people in. In one place, the application said it was 3 to 4 members. In another place, it said 2 to 3. I anticipate that the town will be able to participate in the site visit. That's one of the 6 sessions with the technical experts that are doing the training. And and I wouldn't be surprised if they would be open to adding a member of the team or letting others participate in some way. But I think there's the training aspect, and then there's the training focus around a particular project, and the project is River Road, and all of what's developed around that and those techniques are going to be available to the town, and it aligns directly with what we were trying to do in looking at living shorelines as part of our recent proposal for the MVP grant. So it's uncanny how clearly this lines up with what we were otherwise hoping to do with respect to that one type of option for increasing resiliency. So I think it's a great opportunity. I do want to emphasize that when we had this conversation with the CCRC last night, there weren't other members saying, gee, I wish I could take the training. There was full support for having the people that have that baseline expertise be the ones that take the training and learn more.
Okay. Any other questions here?
My preference, and I'm probably gonna be stepping on toes, the Concom agent, I would think would be great here, and it's over 5 months. It's 90-minute training session once a month, and then the site walk.
Well, so the 35 to 40 hour commitment, Liz, I had understood that to mean per individual. Is that accurate?
Team.
Yeah, it involves 5 90-minute sessions. So, and then a site walkover, and then the additional per person, as you said, Angus, and then the additional time would be preparing for those sessions, or I suppose they give homework of some type in preparing for the subsequent sessions. So
the expectation is that each individual would be putting in that amount of time. Is that?
That's right.
Yeah, so I mean, Liz had reached out to me about this, a couple of weeks ago, and that was one of the first conversations I had. And, I talked to our agent, and I looped in the Concom chair, and where, he's doing a great job, but he's very new. We hired him with a terrific amount of background experience in some areas, like invasive management, but he was hired without having worked with the Wetlands Protection Act, administered the Wetlands Protection Act, and we knew that, and that was fine. He's got a master's degree, he's a great guy, very qualified, but he's on the learning curve, and with wetlands, and which is obviously core to his job, and we're coming into a construction season. There's gonna be a lot of permitting, a lot of inspections. Anyhow, long story short, and then the invasive land stewards is a major time impact. We know from when Michelle was here, there were times where that program would implicate 20 or more hours of work in a single work week. So heading into what will be his first season, in this role. And so I did meet with him, and both he and Molly, and I all felt that this would be a lot for his first year. We don't want to do anything to destabilize his focus.
Can I just read the
Day to day.
statement?
Yeah.
The Woodies are expected to commit approximately 35 to 40 hours of staff or volunteer time. That sounds like it's the totality of the 3 or 4 people that you would have. Basically, it's looking for an hour and a half a month from the site. I think if that's
If that
I'd rather
is
have that.
correct, I'd certainly, I think he'd be happy to do
I
that.
think to keep that knowledge within town on a staff employee would be great too.
Mhm.
So, right?
well, as we were putting the application together, the feedback we had was that wasn't going to happen. So we went with the assumption that we would connect it to the CCRC and the River Road project. This application is due tomorrow, so we had to get it prepared for, Wendy requested being able to see it before it got submitted. So we prepared it based on the assumptions of what the team would be.
So what do you think this? I think it's a great program. I guess, you know, my concern, Liz, is that, you know, some of your statements were that you can be in this committee and. I mean, it's almost like you hired a consultant, even though you're not paying them. And so I just would be cautious about assuming the authority to engage, you know, other entities. You know, without it being like a formal subcommittee or anything like that. Just going forward, keep that in mind that this collaborative of professionals is not affiliated with the town directly, you know. Not that they're not providing value, but it's just you know, the way the town structure is, exists.
Yeah, I note that, and I think I am sensitive to that.
Okay, good. So do you wanna have a provision to have another town member on the committee, or possible, or?
If possible, you know, I'm not gonna say I'm not in favor of it, I think it's good. I just think it would be, if I was sitting in the Concom agent's office, I would think for an hour and a half a month, I would have an interest in being involved in it.
I don't think we can, dictate that it's an employer who's gonna do this, if Angus has told us that.
Unless-
Well, but, I mean, what I'm hearing from Liz is that if the group is fine with someone additional sitting in on the trainings, it sounds like you would welcome that, Liz. So when I approached Dan about it and Ollie, I did talk about the 35 to 40 hours, because my reading of it was that was per individual. And I definitely think that was a major factor, just given, you know, workload and so forth. So if it would be an option for Dan to attend the trainings and perhaps not do homework or whatever, I just don't want, you know, we don't want to throw him off what he's got to do every day.
Yeah,
I would think you'd be happy to do that, and it sounds like, if the program's amenable, it sounds like Liz would welcome that, so.
we would welcome that, and you know, I'm interested myself to participate in the site walk, for example. So unfortunately, we can't really communicate with them about that. My assumption is the same as yours, Angus, that it meant 35 hours per team member for the team. So that they were assuming that every team member would attend every one of the trainings. But I can't imagine, given that the whole idea behind this is bringing benefits to communities about projects that they might be potentially be able to implement at some point in the future, that they wouldn't be open to trying to expand the participation where it made sense, or for certain events that are part of it.
If there's a way to work in just a few sentences to allow that opportunity, I think that would be great. I think it would make the application stronger as well, to have a, you know, direct connection to a town employee. I understand is it due tomorrow at the end of the day, or? Do you know?
Yes, it's due tomorrow at the end of the day. What you see is a printout, but it's an online application. So I'll basically be entering those responses
Yeah.
into the application form.
So do you think you could figure out a way to just add a paragraph or a few sentences, just identifying the possibility that our agent might be involved?
Yes, I think I could do that. We're up against a word limit in every one of those responses, but I can do
Right,
that.
right.
I certainly can do that.
Okay. Angus, are you okay with that?
I think it's great.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, I mean, that was my first thought too, but, you know, again, with that,
Right,
yeah, no, I think I think that could work out really nicely.
okay, great. And potentially that could be staff support for this work going forward, if he becomes engaged with it.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
also,
Yeah, I do think, you know, once he's through his first cycle and the land stewards, and, you know, I think we'll have a better idea for subsequent seasons, you know, what the bandwidth is, but this year we, you know, we just know that program is very time intensive and we don't wanna burn him out, so.
Yeah. Okay. So Liz, does somebody from the town need to sign this application? You said it was pretty loose application.
I do not believe so.
Okay.
I'll open it up first thing in the morning and hopefully that's not the case.
Okay,
If so, I mean, I'm in tomorrow, and I'm here pretty late on Friday, so if you need something, just ping me, and I'm happy to sign something if I have to, but.
Okay, thanks, Angus.
Motion?
yeah,
Make a motion to approve the grant for the CCRC, the Living Shoreline Planning Series, with the addition of, conservation agents' opportunity to be, member of the committee.
second. Further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you, Liz.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so I see. I thought I saw Adriana.
Yep, she's on.
Okay, so we'll go back to item B, our request for designation as a special municipal employee. Hello there.
Hi, sorry I'm late.
No, you were early. I mean, we were early, so we took the next item, so that's fine. So do you want to just give us a high-level overview of the situation, what you're asking?
For sure. Thank you so much for inviting me to come. As I submitted in my letter, the position that I'm currently in for the town of West Newbury is Special Water Counsel, but it's not a special municipal employee under the state ethics law. So what that means is that I can't act as an agent or attorney for anyone other than the town in a matter in which the town has a direct and substantial interest. And in addition, I can't receive any compensation in regards to a matter that the town has a direct and substantial interest in. And what's happening is that partners in my firm are being asked to represent various communities in the area of West Newbury. And sometimes West Newbury has an interest in those matters. So even though it's not something I would ever assist West Newbury on because I'm limited to water issues, it's restricting our firm's ability and my ability in particular to receive compensation regarding those representations. So for example, my partner has been asked to represent one of the schools departments in your regional school district in a matter between not West Newbury actually, but the other school district. And because you're part of that consortium, it's difficult from an ethics standpoint for us to kind of work in that representation. And so what we're asking for is that my position with West Newbury be designated special. And so I am still, if I were to be designated special, I still would be precluded from representing anyone other than West Newbury in a water matter. So I couldn't represent, one of your abutting communities and something that deals with water because that's within the purview of my representation of West Newbury. But it does give us a little bit more flexibility to work with other communities in matters outside of water. And this does not, if you were to designate me special, it would not relieve me of my obligations under the rules of professional conduct as an attorney. So I would never be able to represent somebody against West Newbury personally or an attorney in my firm if there's a concurrent conflict. And if there's a concurrent conflict, the only way we could potentially represent either of those parties is if we came to the select board and got permission to do so. So my loyalty to West Newbury is not impacted, and I'm still restricted by the rules of professional conduct to get that prior approval.
Okay. Great. Any questions?
Now, we've done this path before. At one point, they wanted a larger blanket, was
Yeah.
very targeted.
Yeah, I think that's what you had said. Yeah, okay.
Want a motion?
Yeah.
Make a motion, we designate Newbury, Last Street Special Water Council, has a special municipal employee status.
Is that motion adequate for your needs?
That's
Adrian?
great. Thank you so much.
Okay, all right, second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, all right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Have a
Ibra.
good night.
Yeah.
Ibra, do you need, I assume, do you need a letter signed
Yeah, if you go to, or just shoot me an email. I think the other aspect of this, Angus, is that the town clerk needs to send notice to the State Ethics Commission. They keep a list. But I'm happy to communicate offline about that.
Okay, we've actually got the clerk here in the room with us, so we'll talk this over and we'll follow up with you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you.
Bye. All right, item D is a public listening session regarding potential amendments to the dog bylaw. So, I just want to kind of frame this conversation. So there's a new state requirement last year, Ollie's Law was passed, which came after a dog named Ollie died in an attack at a boarding kennel. And as a result of that, municipalities now have to have a clear documented process for issuing and revoking kennel licenses. So, our current bylaw talks about kennel fees, but there's no other, requirements included. So this is clearly something we're required to do by the state, is to update our dog bylaw to include this, Ollie's, so-called Ollie's Law. So when the town clerk started looking at the existing bylaw in order to incorporate this new required component, she found, which is the same thing I found when I made the modifications last year on leashing, that the format of the bylaw and the content, it's not, doesn't stream well, it's not logical in the order. So, she went ahead and, in addition to adding Ollie's Law, just tried to clean up the existing bylaw. There's no content changes, it's just format and how the bylaw flows. So our fear is, we've had a couple other situations where we thought a bylaw was housekeeping, and people were very concerned about making changes. So we wanted to give the public the opportunity to say whether they think we should just add the Ollie's bylaw component, or whether we could go ahead and try to, improve the quality and the logic of the existing bylaw as well. And so in the packet, that's all redlined. You can see the changes that are being proposed. So we are just looking for feedback from anybody here that might want to do that. Are you here for that item?
Well, I think I'm the only kennel in town, so I just came in case you all had any questions, or
Well, thank you. Appreciate it. What's your name?
Elizabeth Wood,
Okay.
rescue dog.
Do you have any opinion about this Ollie's Law, or were you aware of it?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, from my point of view, in talking with animal control a year ago when she came, is that some of the things they're proposing are not people who are working with dogs. So for example, having the dog wear all these tags at all times is dangerous. Tags can cut skin on dogs when they're running. So it's, we were talking about the need to have the piece of paper in the office where you can see that they're registered in the town where they live, and that they have we already have the rabies piece anyway. But things like that are not people who are hands-on working. You have, different people dropping off the dog. Some dogs have it on like a decorative collar, which is not the color that they come into play. And many dogs don't wear a collar at all because they roll in feces and they bite and chew, and then teeth get caught in the collar. So some of the stuff is just not very hands-on, but we can see the piece of just having paperwork that sort of shows that everybody is compliant with that kind of stuff.
Anybody online want to make a comment about how we should proceed with this bylaw change? Okay. So then I guess we'll have to, our preference is to go ahead and try to make the bylaw better in addition to adding the kennel requirements. So I think that's how we'll proceed. Catherine, did you want to comment? I noticed you unmuted yourself.
I did, and I can never figure out how to raise my hand. So thank you for noticing.
Yeah.
I believe you were asking for input or opinions, and I just want to say that I think the second option of rearranging the language, making it more easy to follow, formatting better, and including Ollie's Law makes the most sense. I think if you make it clear to the townspeople that you're not changing the base document other than reorganizing it, I would think that would solve the problem.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, bye.
Yeah, appreciate it. So are you saying the components in the bylaw as presented? you-
Well, I don't know about your bylaw, I
Okay.
just know when we were, a year ago, we're given all of the stuff from the
I
state, but, and then it changed.
Yeah,
I haven't followed it, you know, they formed a committee, but it's just some of the stuff is from like a paper point of view, but not a hands-on point of view of working with dogs, so
okay.
that's what we were talking with animal control, is just having the ability to track everybody, but not necessarily physically. And maybe that's changed, there was a time they talked about the dog had to have this collar on with these specific to tag, yeah.
Yeah.
Technically,
And just, if you could come closer, I wanna make sure that Owl picks you up, and this is Amanda Hackstrom, our town clerk, is gonna
sorry, I think, I know a decent amount about how kennels operate, and obviously you do too from the licensing of like the administrative part, and I think maybe that's a little bit missing about the tags. Technically, per the law, the Ollie's law, they have to wear that town license tag
Mhm.
on their collar at all times when they're out and about. They also have to have the license and provide that to any sort of boarding and kennel owner before a dog even goes to doggy daycare or anything like that. But none of that type of stuff is addressed in bylaw.
In your bylaws.
In the
yeah.
bylaw, and I can actually give you a copy, I'll give you a copy.
But if we're required to have that, shouldn't it be in the bylaw? That's-
Well, so that,
Per law.
and that's the problem, I don't know if they finalized, there was a committee studying it, but, for example, these tags fly off at all times. They're in snowbanks, and, you know, it's not a very logical.
It's not in our bylaw, that's what we said,
Yeah.
we're kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it was in
so
the
we don't
Ollie's
need
law proposed.
We have to follow state law unless we wanna be stricter.
Right.
Unless it's conflicting, but essentially the new bylaw or just the addition of the kennels really just addresses
That they be
licensing.
licensed.
Yep, and it just really, or just for the kennel portion, talks about different types of kennels, the 4 that we will be offering. Domestic, charitable, no license fee, personal 4 to 6, personal 7 to 10, commercial boarding and training, commercial breeding. The bylaw just says that kennel license is required.
Okay.
Talks about the classes, the fees.
So that's good.
Yeah, really just outlines a process for which when you apply,
Yeah, that's
we
good.
have to contact the animal control officer, they just have to inspect it, report back to
Yeah.
us. They either approve or deny, and that's it, we follow the rules.
That's beautiful.
Thank you. I'll give you.
All right,
Thank
thank you.
So if you wanna read that closely, and if you have comments, maybe Amanda, if you wanna jot down your email on there. Or your business card. I definitely wanna recognize Amanda has been the point person on this, she's very knowledgeable on this, and we did have a meeting with Sam Johnson, who's got an issue coming up later on the agenda, and he's been helpful as part of the team on this, but I really appreciate Amanda taking the lead on this.
Yeah.
I had not been aware of this mandate until she brought it to our attention in the fall.
This is a listening session, we're gonna have input at a later time, just to make sure.
Yeah, I mean, in the public notice that we posted Tuesday, you know, being cognizant of what's happened in the past where bylaws have come up and sometimes people get on their heels and dynamics set in, so in the post that I put on the web Tuesday, late in the day, I said that board wouldn't be actually voting a recommendation until April 9th, which is kind of the latest that you can and still make the warrant. And I did that because in case anyone felt this was being rushed or that, you know, there wasn't enough time. So I think if you set the direction that, hey, you're going in direction 2, we can do more news and announcements and let people know, and that way. if
So
there's-
that by the time the vote.
Yeah, what we don't want is, you know, people coming to town meeting with a lot of unaired grievances. If people have concerns about it or opposition, we want to get that out on the table. And it may be by April 9th, it's kind of like a fait accompli, but I don't know. We don't know. I mean, we did a notice just a couple of days ago. Obviously, there's a lot of people in town wouldn't have heard about this, so I think having an extended period where it's on the table and people can read it and see what it means, and if they have concerns, we do want to hear about that. So we don't get into the situation Wendy described where what we had viewed as fairly routine can become controversial. So we're trying to avoid that.
Yeah. Chris, do you have just general comments or?
Yeah, but again, we're not supposed to be into that,
No, it's not that.
We're
No,
not-
just in terms of not voting up to
I
date.
just had some comments, yeah.
Yeah, comments, that's what we're here for. Yeah.
First was that I assume, but I'm making sure the animal control officer has reviewed this and she can work with this.
They have not reviewed it yet. We wanted to get your opinion first, but it is consistent and I can speak with Kayla about it. Confirm everything.
Right.
On the types of kennel licensing, again, maybe just me, but kennels aren't even defined in here.
These would be the definition.
But you've got, well, then you talk about domestic, personal 4 to 6, and personal 7 to 10. What's the difference? There is no, the wording is the exact same,
One of them has 4 to 6 dogs, the other one has 7 to 10 dogs.
but there's no additional criteria or anything. So
It's
why
a
isn't,
personal, so it's their home.
so why isn't it just 4 to 10? Well, you have to have 2 categories, you might look at 4 to 5, 4 to 6, I mean.
Are there different fees or?
Different fees and probably different things that they're looking for or requirements. Some places have 3 different categories, like some of them have up to 12 personal, but I don't know.
Well, that's my question to what happens after 10.
You're not allowed to,
You can't have 10 dogs? I mean, I know crazy.
not as a personal kennel. You'd have to register as.
Commercial.
Yeah.
That's gonna be a commercial.
That sounds like either either though.
Okay,
I'd
so,
like to weigh in when you get to public, Wendy.
okay, we've had public, but, so I'm just giving Chris a chance and then I'll come back to you.
Thank you.
So if you have questions, Chris, I think it's good for Anna to hear them so she can address them, in the final.
No, I guess I'm good, some of the others just. The duplicate comments about least disposal pickup if you're physically incapable, as paragraphs repeated, 7.17.3.
I noticed that this morning, so yes, I was gonna make a comment to strike that.
Anything else? Deb, you still there?
I am.
Okay, you're just not, oh, there you are, okay.
Yeah, Deb Hamilton, member of the public. I bought my land on Middle Street 50 years ago so I could have a kennel in town. And I think, just as I think horses add a wonderful quality to town, the fact that we have a boarding kennel, excuse me, a day kennel, such as Frisky Dog on Indian Hill, and a number of conscientious breeders, exhibitors, agility trainers in town. I think that being supportive and having clear bylaws that welcome up to 10 dogs in a personal kennel. Back when I was a musher, and the Iditarod is going on right now, we had as many as 17 dogs, I think, at one time come through our yard. We didn't breed much, but we did have dogs come and go. And in the 50 years I've been in town, I think it's remarkable that we haven't had dog issues. It's a very dog-friendly town. So I just wanted to share that.
All right, thank you. Good. Thank you, so you have our direction.
Yes, from there, thank you.
Great. All right, the next item is to review and consider recommendations regarding 2 proposed warrant articles, the vehicle patrol bylaw amendments and the cannabis equity bylaw. And we do have Sam Johnson here, who's the building inspector.
I'm here.
How are you? All right, Sam, do you want to just let's start with Article 42, just give us an overview of, why you're suggesting that we adopt this?
That is the vehicle, I'm sorry.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, okay, just making sure I'm addressing the right one. So the current bylaw is just super burdensome. You need to go to, if you want to have more than one, and we call them junk vehicles, which is really, you know, been challenged in courts before as to what's junk or not junk. When you get to what I may view as something that I wouldn't want in my yard, others view as their personal treasures. So I wanted to make it more clear we're talking about unregistered vehicles on the lot, so we don't have a overly parked on parcel with vehicles that aren't registered or aren't running. So the old policy to have more than one would be to go to the police chief, and then you could appeal if he denied it to the Board of Selectmen through the town clerk. And there was a whole hearing process, which is, again, just really burdensome for the amount of times that this is going to come up, or I'm sure it has come up. I don't know of this coming up in the amount of years that I've been around. It's really not.
Sorry to interrupt, but as you spoke, Chief Dwyer just appeared as if on cue. So
See, look at that. I summoned him.
A lot longer, so I mean, not to put you on the, are you aware if this is
Hi, Sam.
ever come up?
What am I walking through?
Yeah, I don't put you on the spot.
Yeah.
Sam's presenting the rationale behind the proposed amendments to the vehicle control.
Yeah, so this just streamlines it. The other problem, or I guess hurdle, is the enforcing authority was unclear, which would lead you to believe it was either the police chief or Board of Selectmen. And with vehicles on a private lot, it's really not or shouldn't be a police matter. And the select board is just not really in a position to go out and do enforcement. I'm out in the field, I'm driving around, I see these things. So it gives me the authority to do the enforcement. There's only been one complaint since I've been around, and it was a simple go knock on the door and say, hey, can you either move or register your vehicles? And the answer was sure. I have this position or this authority in Groveland. I had it in Newbury when I was there. I've never had to implement fines or anything like that. And the fine's $10 a day, so it's not a huge fine anyway. It's really just a mechanism that would allow me, if someone's storing too many vehicles on a lot that are unregistered and not stored in a garage, just stored outside, possibly unsightly, to go knock on the door and have a conversation with them. And if need be, send out an enforcement notice, which usually no one wants to fight the town either at a board or in court over moving an unregistered vehicle. It's really more a cleanup of the procedures and policy and the enforcing authority. I tried to keep it as simple as possible based on other towns, pretty simplistic language.
Okay. So, Chris, do you have specific comments?
Quite a few.
All right, let me just, so Angus, are we required to say Board of Selectmen because we have not changed?
No,
Okay.
it would,
That would be
that
great.
was, we could say select board.
Okay. Sam, the other question I had was on the, section 2.
Mhm.
It says not currently registered with Mass. I mean, could there be out-of-state license plates on vehicles stored?
I had brought that up as well, and we went back and forth a little bit with it. So if it's unregistered, it doesn't really matter. If it's registered, this bylaw wouldn't have authority over it, because again, at that point, it is a registered vehicle. And if you are registering your vehicle illegally out of state, that would be something again for police to handle, not this bylaw.
Okay, so it reads an unregistered automobile shall be one which is not currently registered with the Mass Registry.
Correct. Yeah, and I see the problem with the way it reads.
Yeah,
And we
okay.
should should probably clarify that language. I would prefer that just is not currently registered with a registry of motor vehicles or in a, whatever it is, in a state.
Okay, great.
I had the same question, because
Oh, okay.
that was one of them. Other thing which to me was confusing is I started reading it and I started marking it up. Section 2 says you can't have the vehicle, but then you get down to the middle of the paragraph, it says you can have one unregistered vehicle. I think those ought to be flipped, you can have one, you can't. It just doesn't read easily to get there. And then I started thinking, there's a fellow out on Roger Street, I know the gentleman passed, but he had a bunch of funky vehicles cut up and refabricated and things like that on his property. That would then allow somebody to have a complaint over something like that. 'Cause they're not
Correct.
registered.
And currently, the current bylaw would allow a complaint of something like that as well.
Every year, the person would need to come in for another hearing too, per section 4.
With more than one unregistered vehicle.
Because there are a number of these instances in town, I see them. There's probably not been complaints because I hope most people don't get bothered by it, but it could get cumbersome at some point if every year you gotta have 4 or 5 people come in and go through that. Then my next comment, go ahead.
Just
Sorry.
on that, my, I guess, experience is with similar bylaws, it is not usually an issue. I am not driving around searching for unregistered vehicles. I don't have the time or energy to do that. Usually this is a complaint-driven section. It's unfortunate that that's what it is, but the lift on enforcement is usually pretty light.
Section 5, it talks about class 1, 2, and 3. I assume that's used vehicle sales and things like that, so they're exempt. The holder of class 1, class 2, class 3 license is defined. Mass general law is exempt. I assume that's because the resale of vehicles and then registration.
Oh, yeah. Yep, sorry, I didn't turn the page over. I was thinking I was missing that. It's just on the backside. Correct.
Okay. Last comment is going to tie a couple of things, I think. Farms, so I think most farms, who used to work on a farm, have multiple vehicles that are unregistered simply out of necessity. And I'm gonna suspect that due to the right to farm bylaw, this would be one of those exemptions that is, they get the benefit of.
So not even due to the right to farm, it's under state law, 40A section 3 exempts those farms and those vehicles. So they are good to go.
And to be clear, because we've been conversation of, these are commercial farm applications, not somebody.
Yeah, not someone with a couple chickens and a tomato plant.
Right. Well, that's what I'm thinking, depending on the definition, you wanna store a bunch of junk cars and you'll have a resale lot for parts and pieces, you buy a chicken and say I'm a farm. I just wanna make
There you
sure you
go.
see that.
One
People-
chicken per car.
One chicken per car, is that the? Thank you, Zale.
So I
Sure.
think that's an important point. I guess you wouldn't want to put that in the bylaw, right, if it's exempt by state law, but people may have questions on that.
Yep, and again, both though the enforcement of 40A and this comes to me, so
Okay.
again, streamlines that, so you wouldn't have conflicting enforcing authorities.
Okay, great. Anything else? Yes.
Nope.
Anybody online have questions or comments? Okay. So we are being asked to vote on this.
Well, not necessarily. I mean, I'm hearing a couple of changes, change select, board select, no select board, change, the Massachusetts Registry of Motor Vehicles to, I had jotted down a state registry of motor vehicles. Here,
Mhm.
if those two changes, if you're satisfied with it, you certainly can vote. If there's anything else, or you want to give more time, you could, come back with an updated version. It's not a zoning bylaw, so there's not a public hearing requirement.
Again, within section 2, I would flip those 2 paragraphs, I think it reads better, but that's just me, because you read one says you can't have them. But then you get down, so you can have one unregistered vehicle. They should say what you can have first and then what you can't have after.
Sam, do you see what he's talking about?
Not really. So section 2, if you can, talks to the purpose of the bylaw. Shall be one.
Paragraph with one unregistered automobile be stored outside, that should start, before, up in paragraph, section 2, I think they should be switched. Because when you go up to 2, it says purpose of the bylaw, unregistered vehicles, it basically prohibits you first, but it's allowing you one.
I gotcha. Okay, yeah, so if you're reading 1 in conjunction with 2, it leads you to believe, I gotcha. Yeah, I'll reword it and, get it back to you. I think that I get what you're saying. Because you're talking about no person shall keep or store outside an unregistered vehicle. And then we define unregistered vehicle, but then we give the permission for one unregistered vehicle.
Right,
Gotcha.
to make it clear to somebody who's reading this, that you're
So-
allowed to have one.
I think easiest would be in section 1 shall store outside in any unregistered vehicle other than allowed in section 3. Maybe something along those lines that leads you down there.
Yeah.
Because
All
that
right,
way,
well-
yeah, I can reword it if that's easier, and then just resubmit it. But I
Okay.
get what you're saying now, Chris.
All right, Catherine, I see you learned how to use the function of raise hand.
I did.
Nice.
I don't know how to unraise it though.
Okay.
So I see this differently. I see section 2, as it's written, as being a definition of what an unregistered vehicle is. So I actually think that should come before section 3, which goes on to outline, what you can and can't do. So I think having the definition of maybe what you say instead of for the purpose of this bylaw, maybe you can say, the definition, do you know what I'm saying? So that as we read further on, we understand what you're talking about. So I see section 2 as staying where it is, but maybe just make it more clear that it's a definition of what an unregistered automobile is.
Yeah, that's easy enough to do. I can definitely make it clearer for everyone because I see what Chris is talking about because it talks about right up front, no person shall store outside any unregistered vehicle. And then it says in section 3, except for you can have one.
Maybe you put the definition right at the top then, because then it filters down.
So I'll fix it and resubmit. That way,
Okay, thank you.
hopefully clearer.
Just my
No,
resident input.
when you're writing it and reading it yourself, you know exactly what you mean. It helps to have someone else read it and tell you what you meant isn't what you wrote. So.
All right, so I think it should be a quick approval once you make those changes. All right, so the next one is the cannabis equity bylaw. Do you want to explain the need for that, Sam, or?
Sure. So the need for it is Mass General Law requires it. We do not currently have one. And this is the state's cookie cutter bylaw that basically comes out and says you will follow their framework for vetting anyone that would need to be viewed as a someone that was what's the word I'm looking for here? Someone that met the standards for getting preferential, I shouldn't say preferential treatment, should be getting consideration for a community that was deemed by the CCC as a community that was potentially harmed or there was an inequality due to cannabis use in that community. So you see a lot of the cities, your Haverhills, your Lawrence, So what this would do is if we had multiple parties interested in the location, we would have to take a look and say, okay, was there someone that was in one of these communities that we need to apply this provision to? And through the CCC, there is a form and a scoring metric that we would need to consider if we had more than one candidate or interested party in a location. I think honestly, the ship sailed on the mad rush for locations. I get what they were trying to do with this. I think it's at this point, I just don't see a large group of people vying for a location in West Newbury. But if there was more than one, we would have to consider, was one a community that was impacted and recognized as one of those communities that we need to apply that standard to.
Okay. So if we did not pass the other bylaw, would we still need this?
Good question. I would say it would be better to have it than not if we didn't pass the other, because at that point, we could still be entertaining a marijuana facility. And as far as our zoning location and other zoning requirements, we may not have them in place, but I do believe the equity standard would still apply. So I think we're, and I could say that with about 90% certainty. I'm certainly not a lawyer, but where this is different than zoning, this is a reviewing licensing for a potential location, not zoning. I think it would still apply and we'd still be in violation of the law if we did not have it in place.
Okay. Did you have questions, Chris?
Yeah, this is not for growing, this is just the distribution, or what did they say? Treatment centers, medical treatment centers, is that what it is?
This is for all cannabis use. Again, any location where we would allow cannabis use, if there were multiple parties looking for that location, we would have to consider this.
But this is for distribution of a product, not for greenhouses and growing, correct?
Yeah, so you have marijuana establishments and medical marijuana treatment centers, which if you go to the marijuana bylaw, those are the definitions that the state puts forward for marijuana establishments. So you could have a cultivator, a manufacturer, delivery services, pretty much any marijuana based business would be a marijuana establishment. They usually just break it down into medical and non-medical.
So now this planning board's gonna have a zoning here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's gonna define where it goes. Do these have to be in the commercial district? I mean, I just want, what's the magnitude of where these could end up?
So right now, the current bylaw as proposed would be the business district with a limitation. It basically narrows it down to about 6 parcels.
And that's, Sam, because of setbacks from things like daycare centers, is that correct?
Yes, yeah, and most of those parcels wouldn't accommodate most of the marijuana establishment uses other than probably retail. They're just not large enough parcels.
Anything else?
A lot in there that I didn't understand, whereas the draft bylaw, I don't know what to do with it.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it might be prudent to, reserve your vote on this until after the zoning plays out. But I thought it'd be important to at least start this process before next week's zoning hearing, because it is, would need to proceed in parallel with that.
What's the harm if we didn't pass this, I guess? What happens then?
I believe we'd be in violation of the law.
Yeah, the CCC did send a notice out back in October, and I think another one more recently, that they are really looking at municipalities that continue to be out of compliance in terms of not having bylaws. I'm not sure what enforcement action they would or could take. I haven't looked into it that far, but I do have a call into the attorney at KP who specializes in this. She's been out for family issues for a little while. So we haven't been able to connect, but that's something I can look into further. I talked to our land use council a couple of times about it. She said it's such a specialized area of law, and more to the point, it's been a rapidly changing area of law, that even our land use council, who's quite knowledgeable, didn't want to touch this issue with a 10-foot pole. She said, talk to Nicole, because that's the person who's their in-house expert. So if you know that question or any other questions that come up either tonight or Tuesday at the public hearing, we'll review with the council.
Okay. Sam, did you say this was a template from the state, pretty much?
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
it's very limited changes. It is pretty much as laid out by the state. Their language, their definitions. It really didn't seem like there was any reason really to change it or to create our own forms or our own scoring scale where they already have that and you can use theirs. Again, I think the potential for us needing to go through that process of scoring a community is probably pretty minimal.
Okay.
But we have it available to us if we need to through the state forms.
So if the state went so far as to provide forms, why don't they just write the law so that we don't need a bylaw?
That's what I'm doing, yeah,
Yeah.
just say you own it, done.
Yeah.
Give them a call.
You got the number?
Yeah.
All right. All right, anything else on this? I think we'll take this under advisement and wait till after the hearing next week.
Sounds good.
All right, thank you, Stan, appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you, Sam.
Oh, I didn't ask for comments.
Oh,
Anybody in the public want to make a comment? No. Okay, great. All right, the next item is a request to reauthorize the health insurance opt-out policy for FY 27 to 29. And so this is done every 3 years, correct, Alice?
correct.
So when we talked about it last time, we were wondering, what the point of this is. Is it to encourage employees to, to opt out? It doesn't seem like it's enough money to actually do that, so we just had a discussion about what is the benefit of this program and do we want to continue it. I think where we kind of ended up is we should just renew it for now and defer any kind of major change to the future. Was that your opinion, Chris?
Actually, I voted it at the time, so I think because it was a non-action item, we did, that was the intent, is
Yeah,
we debated increasing it and then said, well, what's the point, what's the intent, will it motivate anybody to change anything?
mhm.
And it probably doesn't, so.
So, are we required to do it for 3 years? Could we just do it for 1 year pending
You can do it.
evaluation?
Yeah.
What do you think about that, Chris?
See a problem with 3, I guess, I mean, unless you,
Well, if we decided 6 months from now that we wanted to change it, I don't think we can change it. We've already voted it for 3 years,
what regard would you change, up, down, remove it?
either, all the above.
You want to be having this discussion again in a year?
Potentially. I mean, doing this right before budget, this would significantly change the budget if we increased it, so.
We have
I think-
$50,000 to the budget based on the numbers here.
Yeah, so I think it makes more sense to kind of review it off budget cycle and figure out what we want to do with it, rather than doing.
Okay, that's what we're doing, fine,
Is
so
that all right?
I'm easy time.
All right, all right.
Make a motion to maintain the stipends to the opt-out for the health insurance at the current levels of $1,500 for family and $750 for individual. for 1 year.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, the next item is to reassign select board liaison designations. Any of those you want to take, Chris?
All right.
How about water?
No, my question is there any urgency to do this right now or wait for the election?
Oh, we still have 3 months to go.
I'm not sure I'm gonna be going any more meetings.
Well, I think it's good for a committee just to know who to reach out to if they have concerns. It won't lock you in for next time if you.
Sure.
All right, I'll do the fire engineers.
Thank you.
I already.
Well, why'd you say thank you? You didn't want me? Okay.
Well, I was gonna
I
say you,
get it.
and you'd be like, I don't wanna do it.
You give me what you want, Mindy.
All right, how about CBA and Board of Water Commissioners? The Water Commissioners meets during the day and then. Cool,
Yeah, I'm not saying I will go. If they call up and request, I will go.
all right. You could just reach out to the chair and let them know. Item H, designate a select board member to participate in the review process. So the solid waste proposals have been received by the procurement officer and she's looking to appoint the committee to assist in the evaluation and selection.
I thought we'd already appointed. Was kind of threw me when I saw this.
It wasn't a formal appointment, we talked about you doing it, but I don't know that. It was premature because really this is. You know, this hadn't occurred at that time.
Okay,
You've
fine,
got it
I'm
all
fine either
good.
way. Yeah, I just was confused when I was at the meeting the other night. Yeah, it's fine.
Yes, I move that Chris represent the select board in the. Solid waste RFP procurement process.
Second.
Favor? Aye.
Alright, I can, I'll let, Caitlin know, and, either she or I can send you the proposals that have been received. Chris, I think you got the,
I'm right here.
you already got it, great, okay, and you got the RFI. The RFI that was sent out, request for information and the appendices, but if you want any of that, it's all on a shared server, so.
He went to the meeting the other night.
Great.
This is
I hear that it's,
pretty straightforward business
that's what I hear.
in a good way.
Yeah, the other thing, we talked to, Tom McEnany earlier this week, actually, it's funny, he gave me a call while I was on the line with Wendy, so I conferenced us all together, and he's gonna be advising us on a form of contract, for solid waste, so. That'd be good to have his help, so I put him in touch with Caitlin as well.
Yeah, the Board of Health was kind of struggling. They didn't know if they were supposed to vote or what the process was going forward. So it goes to Caitlin now and the committee and then.
Yeah.
Get together and review them informally too. So,
Yeah,
What was the one item that Tom McNay suggested including?
what was the one
Is it a liability?
No, it was, what was it? It was,
He was gonna send a copy of the contract, with Topsfield.
yeah, there was one thing that was not in their contract that he would recommend, and,
Well,
one change I would make is to require the contractor to provide a performance bond, but otherwise the form of contract he's recommending, or he's provided to us is in a form he would recommend, so performance bonds.
Okay, and then he would review it.
Yes, yeah,
yeah, no. Board of Health was on board with that. And I also pointed out to them based on one of the agendas that identified that Angus is the party that signs the contract, not the Board of Health.
Okay,
And they were fine with that too. That is not surprising.
Good. All right, next item is minutes from February 26th.
Modify them after I sent them to Max. Okay.
I mean, not substantially, but
That's fine.
there's just a missing period under item BA, the first sentence. There's no period.
Punctuation is what was cracked up to me.
That's probably me from redlining and accepting changes at the.
That could be, I do it too when you're doing that.
Yeah.
I notice myself doing it.
Right, the motion.
I make a motion to accept the minutes of February 25th, 6th as submitted.
As amended.
What, just a period?
Yeah.
As amended.
Second. On favor.
Aye.
All right, moving on to discussion items. Item A is to discuss the comprehensive plan visioning process status. So we had discussed the potential scope at the last meeting in the working group. And Chris and I both attended the planning board meeting last week. Since then, the planning chair and I met and decided that we thought it would be better to delay the visioning process, given that we're having some staffing turnover in the planning department, as well as Agnes's departure. So it just felt like.
No, that I'm departing.
What's that?
Did you say my departure?
Yeah,
Potential.
as well as Agnes's potential departure.
You do your post.
Unless you know something, I don't know.
Well, the whole point is there's some staffing changes going on. Also, you know, adding an HR manager and this organizational assessment. We just felt like all that stuff should be kind of buttoned up before we start on the comprehensive plan. So planning board will discuss it at their meeting on Tuesday, but I my opinion is that's where we're headed. So do you have any thoughts on that, Chris?
Yeah, I'm not sure if the place, but I'll make them anyways. You and Annie corresponded with a letter. Can I make a comment about that?
Sure.
Somewhere, I don't have it at my fingertips, within the letter, I think you explained to her that based on the changes to town staff, we're gonna have to back off on a lot of projects. And they're gonna go on hold and be delayed for a while. So I think we have to let pretty much everybody know that at this point. I think you said maintain baseline service is gonna be difficult enough, so that's what I think we're gonna have to buckle on down, start looking at pretty serious.
Yeah, I was thinking under a future agenda item. I know we just approved the work plan, but maybe we need to look at it and specifically say which ones need to just go on
Well,
hold.
based on staff changing
Yeah.
at all levels right now, yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's gonna be critical.
Okay. Item B, Board of Water Commissioners, potential water rate changes.
So this is, I will tell you what I know. So the Water Commission has been working very diligently on their budget for FY 27. In addition to their posted meetings, they've got a subset, one member's been working closely with the staff and another local volunteer. They've been reviewing the numbers very closely, looking at prior couple of years' actuals. And they have another meeting coming up this coming Tuesday, the 17th. And it's expected they will be voting their recommended budget, which would then be taken up by the Finance Committee of the Select Board on March 26th per the overall schedule. I had been contacted late last week by a member of the Water Commissioners with a suggestion that they might be actually looking at a rate change because they are seeing that the revenues year to date are lower than had been forecast. And the understanding is that with the rate changes that they made about 2 years ago, that has had an effect on consumption. And as a result, their revenues are a little bit down and they are looking at this point, estimated deficit for FY 27. So I got an email late last week about potentially a rate change for FY 27, and that could be taken up as early as next Tuesday, the 17th. I responded and provided a copy of the town meeting vote a couple of years ago, which had required 14 days advance notice, including a hearing notice in the newspaper before any rate change. I met with that member Wednesday morning and got it all cleared up. They're not going to be voting any rates next Tuesday. But as of when this agenda for tonight's meeting was posted Tuesday afternoon, I had not had that meeting. So we put this on tonight's agenda, not knowing what we were going to have to report. So what I have to report is they're working on the budget. There is no intent for them to vote any rate change, next week or really. My advice was to not consider that till after town meeting for a couple of reasons. For one thing, they'll be asking the voters to appropriate funds for a rate study. And I think voters would ask, why are you asking for a rate study if you just voted rates? And secondly, if the budget as proposed would necessitate a rate change, it would seem premature to take an action prior to the actual approval of the budget, because within the review of the budget, there may be other options that they haven't looked at. So I think that that's been met favorably, the suggestions to kind of pump the brakes a little bit. And I think there was a little bit of a misunderstanding in terms of I think there was a thought that the budget, when presented to town meeting, had to have all of the revenues identified. It doesn't. You do need to know for practical purposes, but it's not like legally the rates would need to change before town meeting, and for logical reasons it perhaps doesn't make sense to do that. So there's not gonna be any rate vote in the immediate term. So we'll know coming out of Tuesday's meeting what they'll be presenting as a budget, and then the following week on the 26th of this month is when the select board and finance committee will be reviewing the proposed water budget and articles.
So if the lower revenue is from increasing rates, they increase them again, aren't we just gonna be in a worse situation? I mean, it seems to me cutting costs is the way to deal with this, not raising rates.
It seems that that ought to be looked at, and I do know they're trying to squeeze some expense lines, but in terms of I don't want to get ahead of them in terms of, I've heard numbers kicked around in terms of the scale of the deficit, but I don't want to, that's, I gotta let their process play out, but obviously that's gonna, be part of the discussion.
Anything on that, Chris?
No, I sort of suspect when they increase the rates that people who are really using too much cut it down, so I think it's gonna become incremental there too, but
Yeah,
you gotta look at both sides of the points, I do agree with
but there's not that many people that are, it's not the higher rate that much,
Right.
right? Or is it?
Well, as you know, the change a couple of years ago was very heavily skewed toward the conservation rate, and it was above the 35,000 gallons. So, but I don't have direct visibility of what the usage is, and
Curious, what role that does play.
that. I think it's gonna be diminishing returns on that, so that's one thing, I think there's the definite need to look at cutting costs, and that's the only other option, really.
Right.
I mean, you could, if they were looking to plug a, 1-year budget deficit, they could draw from retained earnings to do that. That's obviously not a sustainable business model, but it is something that is, it's an option that they could propose.
You and I were at a meeting with them on one of these things, and they gave us that whole matrix of water utilization over the years.
Mm.
Remember that? And over the past 20 years,
Right,
the
right.
gallonage just has reduced almost about 40% per household use. So people are using a lot less water.
Mhm.
So at a certain point, you're gonna be compressed.
Yeah.
It was a fascinating little graphic they gave us.
Yeah,
All right.
that actually, the source of that graphic was actually Wendy, and then I carried it forward 5 or 6 years, but that the original chart actually came from the open space and rec plan from 2018, which I believe Wendy was one of the prime authors of. And then I inherited that spreadsheet from her long before she was on the board, and then I kind of have maintained it going forward. So that didn't come actually from the water department. I mean, the data
They
came
handed
from
me a
them.
physical paper.
The data came from them, but the chart,
Presentation.
yeah.
All right, the next item is to just review and discuss the records about the split use of the DPW building with the water department. This came up last week when we were discussing that warrant article. And the water department asked to wait till we found out what the agreement was and revisited that, so. Any thoughts on that, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, first thought was it scares the heck out of me reading the letters from 2007. Seems like yesterday, I was 19 years ago.
And I get, again, the question is this still valid? I mean, right? Yeah. So I think it's a good idea to revisit it.
Oh, I think 100%,
Yeah.
because we just put what, 100,000 into a roof? More?
I thought it was about 70.
Okay, but so. They got 20 years a ride on the building for paying utilities. Now the building is degraded to the point where it needs a lot of money into it.
Mhm.
Another question was like, they did a very nice little graphic of the water department municipal use space.
Mhm.
I don't know if that's still the same today or what has changed and evolved, so that would be, so I think revisiting the whole thing, as sit down as a group and sort it out.
Yeah,
And that said, if at the last meeting, Jack made the point about, let's look at the agreement. I still would have been in favor of spending the $32,000 or $38,000 to fix the building, because one way or the other, the town's gonna need the space and sit there and say you gotta pay, even if the town had paid the whole thing, I wouldn't have a personal problem with it, but everybody said, let's take a time out and look at it, so I'm fine with that too.
Yeah. Okay.
Letter from another letter, February 20th, 2007. The town will be responsible for the maintenance of the building. They should have had a little more criteria up to what point, what's
Yeah,
maintenance,
maintenance
what's
or-
capital improvements and things like that. But, I think fix a broken window every year for $200 is different than replacing a roof.
It also seems like it would be good to look at the building holistically, like what are the capital needs over the next 5 to 10 years, instead of just saying, all right, we're gonna do the siding or.
Well, the selectmen tried to do that in their meeting in 2006 when they wanted, McGrath asked them what they thought the needs would be over the next 10 years. So that was, that their conversation was limited around a 10-year timeframe.
Okay.
So like, definitely time to sit and look at it.
So I did talk to Mark about this. First of all, I thank him for providing this, because I hadn't seen these documents, but I told him that my assumption coming out of tonight's meeting would be some direction to formalize an agreement between water and town, and he assumed that would be the direction, and I know that's where at least one member, if not the majority of the water commissioners, so I don't think that's a budget season issue, but I think it's something that when things slow down in 6 or 8 weeks, like that's something we could look at.
So yeah, it would be interesting to update the floor plan layout.
Yeah.
Water is still taking up as much real estate, and I mean, was it really a fair trade? Utilities versus no rent?
Well, we
Because-
don't know what the utilities are. It's $100 a month for utilities.
Well, that's, so I think those are important questions.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
and the fact that town.
Hi, Wendy. Wendy, this is Mark. So the utilities and everything, it's been a low maintenance building over the last 20 years. The town hasn't put a lot of money in it, nor has the water department. And I know the electric bills are way more than $100 a month. Between us, DPW.
Yeah,
and
we're
stuff.
just saying that should be quantified.
Yeah.
That's part of the discussion.
Yeah, exactly. No, and that's what we had figured, but
Okay,
we had just figured that we're probably gonna wind up having to sit down and revisit it. Some of the math on that.
yep. All right, sounds good. Sounds like we're in alignment.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mark. I didn't know that was you. You're a Zoom user. Who knew?
So the things I learned, huh?
It's just showing up on the screen as the Zoom user.
And nothing lit up, but where's that voice coming from?
Well, I left the camera off so I could sit and have dinner and pat the dog and, sit here and relax.
Making us jealous, Mark. My dog.
All
All
right.
right, guys.
Thank you.
All right, bye now.
Next item, advice from the CPO on the Act Committee request about, leasing town land or licensing. I guess you referred to this earlier.
Yeah.
In the conversation, I didn't realize that he had reached out to.
No, I hadn't. It's funny. I had briefed Rebecca on this following the recent board discussion, and she and I had called Caitlin last week and to brief her on all this. And she said, "Oh, I talked to Rich weeks ago," and I'm like, "Oh," so I had no idea he'd already reached out. She provided some advice, and she was fully in the loop on what was being considered. So I kind of took her advice, put it into a memo, and so
Yeah, that's good.
I don't know
Yeah, I think what we agreed to on the work plan was to come up with a list, and they're well beyond that, so, apparently Rich went to the Conservation Commission to talk about it, and the commission told him that wetlands delineation would have to be done on any property before, the town could consider leasing or licensing it, which I'm not sure. Not being at the meeting, I don't know how the discussion actually went, but that seems a bit, extreme. So.
all farms in town need to have wetland delineation?
Well, if we have a town property that we're gonna turn over for agricultural use, they were saying that a wetlands delineation would have to be done. And my thought is you can look at GIS and see whether there's any indication if it's high and dry, that seems, because that's expensive. You know,
Not any property, yeah, if they were.
12 acres, you know, we're doing a wetlands delineation, yeah. So, I mean, that's TBD, but I think maybe the Acme is getting a little bit ahead of, where we envision, you know, going this first year, but I mean, it's following direction in terms of who we should talk to, so that's positive.
So the Dunsfield, that's a licensing agreement.
Correct.
Basically just said you can farm this and for no duration until it's revocable.
That's exactly right.
There's no compensation.
Correct.
They have insurance.
Yep, they provided an insurance certificate. We've got a current one.
And no delineation.
Well, that's good. I think this discussion was, land that has not been farmed. Because there's an exclusion or an exemption in the Wetlands Protection Act for agriculture. But it's only active agriculture, so I think their point was if this land's been fallow for 5-10 years, you can't use the same exemption. So it would have to start off as if it was not agricultural.
Unless the utilization of land status had changed.
Yeah, I'm not arguing their point, but that's was what I heard the discussion centered.
Well, again, as you said, the ag committee is gonna get us a list. I mean, we'll get a list and we take a look at those on the map and see if there's any wetlands even here.
Yeah, I think at the last meeting, the consensus was it's probably too late for the season anyway. So I think we should spend this next season, you know, coming up with a lease agreement or a license agreement, talking to other towns that have done this. It's a big question about soil sampling. Should the town do soil sampling to share with the potential farmer, or should they do it? And what if you uncover something that, you know, is not good? So there's a lot of questions of this. Yeah. Anyway. Catherine, did you have a comment?
Yes, I do. I happen, sorry, I attended that Conservation Commission meeting that Rich was at. And they did clearly say that they would require a formal delineation of wetlands on any parcel that would be considered for this agricultural use. Barry Vogel also went on to say that with the exception probably of Dunfield, this is their opinion, that this would require a reclassification of the land usage. I think he referenced Article 97, which would require the acquisition of an equivalent amount of replacement land, would also require a 2/3 vote from the town and legislative approval to reclassify the land as being agricultural use versus in a lot of cases, we just have recreational land, or I know there was some talk about a parcel that the town owns that was for the water department. So that would all need to be reclassified and it would have to have legislative approval. I'm not saying this is fact, I'm saying this was what was discussed.
Yeah, I think that is true, Catherine, for land that the Conservation Commission owns, that could be true because there's a conservation restriction on it. So Article 97 would come into play, but there's a lot of town land that's just general municipal purposes.
That's what Dunn was purchased for.
Yeah.
We didn't want to put any restrictions on it because we had no idea what the future would be, so it was deliberate on that.
So there may have been, not a misunderstanding, but maybe the two parties were talking about something different. Is that possible?
It's possible. It's certainly possible. I think they were just talking about certain parcels that are classified and that if they wanted to be used, such as that Riverbend hayfield, that that would need to be reclassified if it was going to be used. That was just an example.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just wanted to raise that. I was at that meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. My advice definitely to the ag committee would be in your screening process of town parcels, anything that's subject to Article 97 or a conservation restriction or both, I would strongly recommend not even look at it. just look at that, that's general municipal purpose.
Mhm.
And the assessors, obviously, as you know, have, they have all that information.
Mhm.
And it should be all in the GIS. Every now and then, the GIS layer is not 100% accurate. Over the years, anytime we find anything that's not accurate, we report it and it gets fixed, so it should be pretty good.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I'd have to see that parcel list again too, but the Andreas Thurlow parcel over on Middle and
Mhm.
Indian Hill, that should have no restrictions on it.
Right, I agree.
You mean the big one on the corner?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one they were looking at is,
I
guess-
originally bought with Wells gonna be put in
Yeah.
there. Maybe the water department has custody of it, I don't know who.
They, I
No.
believe, with the Andreas,
Yeah,
Andreas, but he's talking
Right.
about a different parcel.
Andreas and Thurlow, two are tied right together.
Right, but one of them is general municipal, and the other one is water. So,
Which they have no need for at this point either too, so.
Yeah.
Be addressed also.
Lisa, did you have a comment?
Yeah, just a quick comment. I also believe that if you were to allow use of town-owned fields or land for farming, and it was to be under right to farm and the ag committee, it would have to be farmers from the town of West Newbury
I don't
To-
think that's correct.
to be covered under right to farm, because I believe that we excluded, I'd have to look at the bylaw again, but I believe we excluded farmers that farm within West Newbury but are not residents of West Newbury.
Okay, well, I'll bring that to the committee. I don't think that was their primary concern. They were just trying to, make agricultural use of town-owned land that's not being.
We had that conversation with them when they were here before.
Yeah.
And the discussion was if there was two parties wanting the same parcel, you would
Mhm.
defer any resident farmer priority.
Right, but she's talking about whether the right to farm law applies if an out-of-town farmer is using the farmer, would they still be protected under? I mean, they would be as under the state laws, right?
Yes,
So,
right.
yeah.
But there are already quite a few parcels that are, for instance, hayed or whatever by farmers that do not actually reside in West Newbury, or even parcels that are used by farmers that aren't from the town of West Newbury. But yeah, there's as there's, far less farmers within town. I'm just wondering, are there farmers out there from town who are saying, well, we need more land, or we're really looking for land to farm and we don't have enough? I'm not sure what the impetus of doing all this research and work for if we don't have farmers within the town who are requiring this. So it's just a thought in my head.
Okay, I'll pass that along to the
I
committee.
don't think there has to be a prerequisite to be a farmer in this town, to farm on town-owned lands.
Yeah, Cole's not, right? Or who's doing
Right,
that?
we're doing done, it's not.
Okay, right. But, within the procurement process, you could put that in as
It
a,
could be a priority. I
yeah.
mean, their main goal is to have the land farmed, so if no town resident wants to, they wanna have something.
This is what I started like 3 years when I first got on here, I said, that's sort of how we got here, so.
Yeah.
I just hate seeing the town acquire farmland, let it go fallow and be useless when you're trying to promote farming in the community. So whether it's somebody in the town, which I don't even know if we have any more local farmers still here. I mean,
Yeah.
Thurlow's not doing much.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't wanna shut it down because somebody from out of town could benefit and make the land valuable again. I think that's what we're trying to
Yeah.
accomplish.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree. And, we had originally, when we wrote the right to farm bylaw, we had actually wanted to include, because there are farmers actually who lease land within the town, or, graze cattle within the town, that kind of thing, but who are actually from surrounding towns. So, yeah.
Okay,
Well, just as a point, as we were going through this right to farm bylaw, the Maple Street parcels, those fields, I'm sure you've seen, those have been revitalized and
Yeah.
Kimball's farming those.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself the same thing, okay, he's out of town, but because it's the land that's getting the protection in essence, That's still protected under the right to farm bylaw.
The state right to farm bylaw.
Even our local one would.
Yeah, I don't know, let's not get off the track here, but, all right, I'll pass that along, Lisa, thank you.
Okay.
All right, last item is, organizational assessment process and timeline, the, proposals are due Monday by close of business. So, I guess I'll have to talk to Caitlin, if this is, I mean, do you know what requirements there are for us in the choice? It's a request for a quotation, but like, there's no, it's under 50,000, so there's no formal, process.
Right,
So,
I think it's, I would say it's up to Caitlin.
yeah, so maybe at, I don't know if we will have any time at the meeting next week for us to discuss that.
I know FinCom likes to meet at 6, so if you could post it 5:30 or 5:15 or something.
Does that sound all right, Chris?
Sure.
Okay. So I mean, ideally, I'd like to get started as soon as possible on this. In light of the fact that the comp visioning process is not gonna happen now, I mean, we were really interested in the governance. Discussion, I'm wondering if we can kind of incorporate some part of the public process from that into this organizational assessment. So I just wanted to kind of brainstorm a little bit about, if we think that's a good idea, how we could do that, whether it's surveys or inviting the public and committees to like a kickoff meeting or the closing meeting. I think we'd already talked about having a big meeting at the end and presenting the findings to boards and committees, right?
I don't think you need that, yeah.
Yeah. So what do you think about the idea of making it more of a public process to try to, I mean, I view it as an opportunity to educate people about what the town manager form of government is supposed to be like, or what it actually means in terms of roles and responsibilities. So if we involve people at the beginning, I think it could be more effective.
Yeah, but I think that's the big frustration of realizing that we changed from select board form of government to town manager. Nobody explained it to a lot of these people and they want to operate the way things had been, so it's a lot of resistance, so.
Yeah.
If that can get incorporated with it, here's some county proposals, we've been saying, right? We do have governance in there, I thought, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's three main components. One is the employees, structure, in the town office building. The second is, boards and committees and their roles and responsibilities. And the third is the town manager form of government and where we are, what work needs to be done to make a full transition, so. So I guess what I would propose is, once we can look at the proposals next week and maybe have a preliminary meeting with whoever we choose, just to say, what are your ideas for how we can make this process? And if it changes the dollar amount a little bit, I think that's fine, we get extra money. And FinCom reserve fund transfer, so, does that sound good? All right. So should we meet at 5:30 next week? That should be enough time, right? Unless we add a bunch of stuff.
That was what I was gonna say.
All right, TBD, time TBD.
Don't go ahead and stop, we have 5:30.
Okay. Correspondence, the CCRC, circulated Mass DEP slides. Did you have any comments on that, Chris? All right. All right, future agenda items, I did mention, what did I mention? Future agenda item. Oh, potentially looking at the work plan and identifying things that we're gonna need to put on.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Anything for you, Chris?
Yeah, the task to keep us busy.
I know. It's gonna be a crazy month. Continue to be a crazy month. All right, I move to go into executive session, for MGL chapter 30A, section 21A, 2, 3, 6, and 7.
Second.
All in favor?
Wow.
Aye. And then we will join open session immediately following for the sole purpose of adjourning.
All right, thanks, everyone.